afternoon, chat. It's Sunday. Um, and I had a really a little interesting thing come across my one of my feeds. So just as a background, I'm in a lot of like, I don't want to say do-it-yourself groups, but they kind of are like, the whole RV conversion thing, the mini house or tiny living, I should say, the tiny living movement, and this comes across all the time, and it just baffles me. I guess to a point, some of it I understand because of how I was raised, but people will get in and they will ask something that I consider to be not a skill question, because let's face it, we all have different skills, right? But it's a common sense question. Like if you know what the thing is that you're talking about, you should know the answer to the question that you're kind of asking. Like for example, in one of the tiny home living uh groups that I'm in, somebody came in and asked the question, I want to put up paneling, um, and do I can I put that up by itself, or do I have to put drywall down and then put up the paneling? And it's weird because to me that's common sense. Paneling could just go on a wall. Drywall is drywall, paneling is paneling. They're two separate things that do the same thing. One is just a much higher quality than the other one, and it's more expensive and requires a lot of work. Paneling is cheap. Paneling is easy to install for the most part. It doesn't offer like insulation values that drywall does. It doesn't offer sound deadening values that drywall does. Um, there's in addition to the insulating values, there's additional thermal issues that you talk about with paneling versus drywall, and to me, I just didn't get it right, and understand I'm not a construction whiz, or anything like that, but just in like living in a house, uh, and things like that. And I grew up in a mobile home. I lived in one of those most of my life. Um, and I'd never really seen drywall till I mean, as far as up close and understood it. Of course, I saw it in other people's houses, but I mean, like understanding what it is, I didn't until I was an adult. And I get that. Again, I get that it. Even then, though, I knew that you don't put drywall up and then put paneling up, because it's just a common sense thing. If you know what one of them is, um, you know that they do the same thing, right? They cover your dry, they go on the wall, they cover your insulation. It's your interior covering of your wall studs. Uh, and it's got me to thinking, right? It just got me to thinking about a lot of what I consider to be skill based versus common sense. And um, I, do any of you guys have anything like that, right? Uh, yeah, another prime example is, so I also watch a lot of car channels on TikTok and YouTube and whatever. I don't watch Instagram as much anymore. Um, but on some of these car channels as well, especially like the ones where it's a mechanic and it's like, just rolled in is a good channel, and there's a couple of more. But it's like somebody will put oil in the radiator, or somebody will put oil in the uh, windshield washer fluid, or vice versa. They'll put windshield washer fluid in the oil, or they'll put antifreeze in the oil. And I'm like, it literally says oil on the cap. Windshield washer fluid shows what it is. How can you confuse those things? It's not a skill thing. You don't have to know about cars, um, that much. I mean, you have to know they take oil, right? Which could be a thing. Uh, but I think if you're just around people and you just exist in the world, you kind of know that your car has to have oil. And then if you can read, which most of us can, and I get some people can't read, I'm not knocking them, right? But that, in our world, that's like a very small, very, 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 very minuscule percentage of the population. Um, and then you own a car and you pour like a gallon of antifreeze in your oil. How do you do that? There's nothing to confuse there when it literally says oil on your oil cap, and there's a label that says windshield washer fluid on the jug of windshield washer that you're pouring in there. Now I know that there's those memes that go around like every winter, like, oh, be sure to put antifreeze in your oil so your car doesn't lock up. All those dumb shit memes. But and don't get me wrong, some of those can be tricky. If you don't know anything about vehicles, if you don't know the slightest thing about a vehicle, they can be tricky. And I totally get that. But for the most part, I understand. For me, it's common sense. It's not. You don't have to have a skill in auto mechanics to know not to put windshield washer fluid in your oil. It doesn't take a skill. Or I saw one today on Just Rolled In, and a guy drives in and he's saying that his steering wheel is all over the road. So they get his car up on a lift, and they're showing their process of checking out the car. And now I know these mechanics saw what was wrong as soon as the car rolled into the bay, right? But they go through their checks, because you don't assume, as a mechanic, you don't assume that what you see is the issue, right? You always do your checks. You do your checklist of things that you look for a given problem, because you want to determine if there's a root cause for what you see. But they got down to the guy's front tires, and he had literally worn the tires through to the belts, like in a massive patch. It wasn't like a little spot. It was a massive patch. And in that, if you know anything about cars, once you rub through the belt, it bulges, right? And so they went and looked at the other tire, and the other tire wasn't that bad, but you could tell. I mean, it was severely worn. I mean, it was slick, completely slick, but it hadn't worn through the belts. So they went and told the customer, sir, here's your tires, and you need an alignment really bad to start out with. And the guy immediately got pissed and said, you all are just trying to rip me off. I just bought these tires, and y'all are trying to rip me off, because they couldn't be that bad in such a short period of time. And, I guess not understanding what an alignment is, but he desperately needed new tires, and he refused all repairs and drove out with those tires. The shop made him sign a waiver, of course, because letting him go on those tires is almost criminal, and that can come back on you. They could sue you saying they didn't tell you and all this other various bullshit, which, as you guys know, I mean, we're in a sue happy culture in America. I can't speak to other countries because I don't live in any other countries, and I don't track that kind of stuff in other countries. But in America, we're all sue happy. We don't want to take personal accountability for our stuff, and that's okay. But then there are stuff like I saw another one today. Guy's complaining. He comes in and says, my radio's not working. It just randomly changes channels. And he literally has this long, I think it was a necklace, some sort of chain hanging off his rearview mirror, and it dangled over the tuning knob on the stereo. So every time he would turn, that necklace would sway, rotate the tuning dial, which is your channels, right? And wonder why. And I'm just like, it's obvious. Another one was, this happens multitudes of times. They'll get to the shop and their complaint is, my car just won't start. I don't know why. It just all of a sudden quit starting. And the technician goes out and it's literally out of gas. Now, don't mistake me. I get that you can run out of gas as you're driving, and you just forget to check it because you're busy, whatever. But wouldn't be one of the first things you look at is your gas gauge. Car doesn't start. Yep, plenty of gas. Uh, it's not rocket surgery, as they say. So again, just baffled. Just baffled. And there's more. I could drive deeper into it, right? I could drive deeper and give you like a million examples of stuff like that. Um, like should I vent my diesel heater into the cab so I can get more heat? Well, no, that's fucking fumes. Would you like to die? I mean, if you're trying to commit suicide, absolutely. That's I guess that's a thing. Um, but no, that's a bad idea. You do not want to vent your diesel heater into the cab of your whatever, your truck, your bus, your camper, whatever it is that you're trying to heat, right? That's like putting the pipe from the exhaust pipe to the inside of the car. That you just don't want to do that. That's just bad. So again, those are examples. Getting to the point, which is hard because I don't get to the point. I like to meander around the point and tell stories until finally I arrive at the point, which all of us have forgotten 10 minutes ago. But it seems that we don't have obviously skills, right? Because skills are becoming with these kind of things. Okay, understand what I'm talking about? Like knowing stuff about automobiles, knowing stuff about building, or maintaining your property or your house or whatever. Like a lot of these, we'll call them general maintenance skills, right? Not necessarily building skills, but just we'll call them general maintenance skills, for lack of a better term to encompass the whole thing. But it seems like, as we go, as the years go by, there's less and less and less of that. I see this all the time where, uh, the older generations, my generation included, don't mistake what I'm saying. I'm Gen X, by the way, not a boomer, as a lot of people are going to call me. Oh, you're just a boomer. Um, but they'll say, well, young kids nowadays don't know how to do it. And I'm like, okay, whose fault is that? Don't don't just blame the kid, right, for not knowing X, Y, and Z that you know. Who did not teach that kid that? Right? Well, the parent did. Whether it's a boomer, a Gen X, older millennial, don't care, right? But I see a lot of the slamming of people, younger generations specifically, and understand I'm also talking in generalities. Like I get that certain specific people, even way back in the boomer ages, didn't get taught how to work on a car or how to fix your own minor plumbing leak or whatever. I totally get that, right? But uh, why is there such a lack? And you want to point the finger at the younger generation without pointing the finger back at yourself. When my kids were younger, I have adult children. When my kids were younger, and as they were getting to be 15, 16, 17, I would take them out as I worked on my vehicles, and I would show them, hey, this is what you need to do. Now, I would explain the reasons. One is to save money, which, as we know, Gen Z right now specifically, and some of the younger millennials, they're having money issues, and I'm not blaming them. It's not a skill thing. It's not a want to thing, which you hear from a lot of people. Oh, they just don't want to. They just don't know how. All right, they're in a rougher financial predicament than my generation was, or the generation before me, or even some of the older millennials. Right, money saving should be a big thing, but we, as the older generations, have not conveyed that common sense stuff to the younger generations, except for like the oil that I mentioned earlier, which is that should just be obvious, right? But like how to change a tire, which a lot of people would think is like super simple. But I helped a young man change a tire the other day. Um, let me go back. He changed the tire, and then the car wouldn't move. And so he came and asked me, he's like, "Hey, what's going on with that? Why is my car not moving? I don't get it. It moved fine." And I said, "You've got your rim, you got your tire, your spare inside out. So the rim, right, is concave, right? That concave part fits over the brake hub. When you spin it around, you're pressing it up against the brake hub so it can't spin." He was like, "Oh, well, I never knew that. I never knew that rims were directional, right? Um, somebody never taught him how to change a spare tire. Uh, and I get that, but why are we pointing fingers without, again, without pointing fingers back at ourselves? And it again, it just baffles me. So I mentor uh various people for various things, right? Usually it's career based. I do some mentoring, some training for, like, how to write your resume properly, how to do an interview, things like that. Um, and as I work with people, uh, I tend to work mostly with the younger generations. Um, and I find that there are so many basic things. Uh, like they don't even know how to apply for a job. They don't know what all that entails. Obviously, if they're applying for a job, they go to the website or whatever and they follow the instructions, right? But they don't, just following the instructions on whatever website you're on or whatever doesn't always, that's not teaching you how to apply for a job. There's more steps than that, right? So obviously they were never taught that skill by their parents. Now, their parents may never had that as a skill, and I do get that. I'm just using that as an example. I got one recently who said, "Hey man, look, we're doing all this other stuff, and you seem kind of knowledgeable. Is there any way you could help me understand budgeting, just basic budgeting?" And I was like, "Okay, you know how to fill out a checkbook?" No. Okay, that's not necessarily a big thing because checks are kind of like, that's gone by the wayside. Nobody really writes checks anymore, so I understand that. Do you know how to do a basic budget of, this is how much I have coming in and this is my expenditures? No. That is the part that threw me. Um, I understand that a lot of people don't know how to budget. Again, people my age, they don't know how to budget. But the basic concept of, I need to bring in more than I push out in expenditures, that being something that they don't know, their parents never taught them, blew my ever loving mind. Totally blew my ever loving mind. And uh, again, I don't blame that person, right? Um, I don't, because obviously their parents never taught them, or school never taught them, right? So another thing about one of the mentors that I worked with, I'm working with one for a career transition. They got a degree during COVID, and they are trying to transition from their service industry job. Their food, it's kind of like a food service industry, but not. I don't want to give out too many details. Uh, and they want to get into their career field that they got their degree in. And I believe it was a 4-year degree. Don't quote me. I can't remember the actual length of the degree, but um, I was shocked that the college hadn't gone through any basic resume stuff, because I got my degree when I was older. I got my degree in my 40s, and that was a class I actually had to go through, was how to fill out a resume, how to apply for a job, how to sit through an interview. So this particular person I'm working with, their college did not do that at all, which totally blew my mind, because that should just be a thing. If you're going to a school for a professional degree, they should teach you how to be a professional applying for. I mean, because they want the good reputation of people having jobs after having left that college. They want to be able to say, "Hey, all these people got degrees." They don't want anybody out there saying, "Well, this, nobody helped me get a job, so I'm not utilizing my degree." Right? Colleges don't want that. But according to this individual, they didn't get that kind of training. So I'm helping them do that. Um, and again, I look at it as, it's a generational thing. Why are we and I'm not going to get into the money aspect of things right now, but why are we not teaching our next generations how to do basic things? And then we've got some people in the older generations who just want to go, well, you're worthless, you're lazy, or you're not doing this and you're not doing that. And it's like, all these ideas and all this lack of skill set comes from other generations. Now, I'm going to caveat here for a second, right? We in the older generations learned a lot differently, and I'm generalizing here, okay? Each individual person is going to be different, but so I'm generalizing. But we learned through our parents. Our parents came, taught us, and if we didn't learn it from them, we learned it at school. And if we didn't learn it that way, we most likely didn't learn it. Now, of course, you had your exceptions, bookworms and stuff like that, people who go to the library and people who were just like engrossed in whatever, extracurricular activity or sports or whatever, right? Their parents may not have known it, but they got into it through the school or some other way, and then they went and learned about it. But for the most part, if you learned a skill, it was through your parents or through the school. Well, the younger generations, right, the middle millennials on down, they've got the internet at their fingertips, man, which I didn't have when I was a kid. And they literally have the capability to learn any skill on YouTube or a forum, right? They can learn any skill they want. They know, and if it's not a whole skill that they want, they could figure out how to change a tire. And they could do it while they're on the side of the road changing the tire. They can get step-by-step instructions with video. And that to me is the baffling part about some of it, is that they grew up with that internet as a tool. Like me, I'm very technologically savvy for the most part. I actually work in a branch of IT. I work in cybersecurity. So but that doesn't apply to all technology, mind you, right? Right. Because I still have trouble getting my stream set up here sometimes. But even I sometimes, as I'm going to do something, I'm like, man, I wish I knew how to do that. And then somebody would be like, well, why don't you just look up on the internet? Well, go to YouTube. And I'm like, yeah, fuck. Why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I, a technologically savvy person, think I'll just go look that up on YouTube? Because when we grew up learning things, that wasn't a tool at our disposal. So when we go through the problem solving process of how to fix something, that's not always the first thing we think of. We fall back into our habits of, what's my skill set? Let me look at it. Let me go do this. And then later on, we might be like, oh, YouTube, duh, let's go look up a YouTube video, right? But the younger generations learned to have that internet at hand first. That is part of their troubleshooting toolkit. That's part of their problem-solving toolkit. So sometimes when I run across these things with some of my mentees where they're like, oh, I don't know this and I don't know that, I'm like, you realize you have the internet literally at hand, at your fingertips. Oh, yeah, I never thought to look at that. And I don't, I'm not saying that to blame, right? Not saying that to blame. But it then leads into, I start looking at the school education system from their from the anecdotal evidence of, I don't think to go look these things up on YouTube because I don't understand the problem or how to problem solve to get results. And I'm like, that should be like something you get taught in school a lot, is here's the internet, here's how it's a tool, go research, go look stuff up. And maybe somebody in the chat can tell me if I'm just out of my head and maybe they are getting taught that, but they've forgotten it, or they're used to answers being given to them by somebody else or whatever. I'm not exactly sure. Now, I know that my adult children, whenever they have a problem, the first thing they do is they pull out the phone or the laptop or the tablet or the PC or whatever their mode of looking at is, and they go, here's YouTube video. Here's YouTube video. Specifically, my daughter is fantastic about aggressively looking up stuff that she's interested in to learn the new skill, not because she had a problem and needs to fix it. She is aggressively going, I'm interested in this. How would I do this? Like, she wants to cook a new dish, right? Or she wants to learn a new cooking methodology or whatever, right? She'll go and she'll be like, I'm going to go look that up. I'm really interested. And she'll spend a week looking up something before she'll actualize that and do whatever the thing is that she's trying to do. Her and her fiance remodeled their bathroom, and I'm talking remodeled. They tore everything out and redid it. And neither one of them obviously had skills based on, plumbing, wiring, cabinetry, tile, none of that. But they looked it up and understood the things they needed to do. Now, did they come ask me questions? Yes, there were some questions that were asked that they couldn't get a good handle on based off the YouTube video. But that, in the scope of what they did, that was very, very small. The amount of questions they asked was tiny compared to what they were able to accomplish just by reading, just by watching YouTube videos and doing that research on their own, right? They had the internet at hand. They went, they learned. And, to me, that's kind of what I expect. Not saying, I expect you to do this. I'm just saying that with the internet being a tool, I kind of expect the younger generations to be able to fall back to that because they grew up with that, right? I mean, kids nowadays are practically handed phones by the time they're 6. And they grow up with YouTube. Literally, some of the first things they watch, even as babies, mom puts on a YouTube video of some cartoon or some soothing music or whatever. You get what I'm saying. And maybe, as I'm sitting here talking, I'm thinking about it. And, maybe it has to do with the whole taking for granted, right? Well, so it becomes a thing that you're used to using that tool in one way, media consumption, usually, not always, but media consumption, rather than an educational tool, a problem-solving tool, a new skill set learning tool, whatever. And maybe that's the case. Maybe I'm looking at it from the wrong perspective, and I'm looking at it as, well, hey, this is in addition to the media consumption, right? Because like I consume a crap ton of media from YouTube, but maybe to them it's all about the media consumption. Maybe they've never been taught to use it which is baffling, right? Baffling, but maybe they were never taught to use that as a problem-solving resource. Now I'm going to take a different tack, right? So that being said, right? Sometimes I find that it's a mindset thing in all people. I've seen it in all people, whatever generation, doesn't matter. But sometimes people just don't think to solve the problem at all. They just don't think to ever start solving the problem. And there's been times when I've had something that's gone on, and I'm just like, and I've had this problem. It's been going on for a while. And then for some odd reason, I'll run across a YouTube video where somebody mentions that, and then, oh, by the way, go watch this guy. He fixed that for me. And then they go on about whatever their unrelated YouTube content is, or TikTok or whatever. Or I may just get a random TikTok video show up on my For You page where it's like, hey, you might be interested in this. And it's something that I've been dealing with, and they solved the problem. And I'm like, well, why did I not ever think to solve this problem? Why have I been sitting here for X amount of time living with this problem when I literally could have looked this up on YouTube, or I could have saw a video on TikTok or Instagram or a forum or something, right? Why have I sit there this entire time dealing with a particular problem? Like, for example, for me personally, when I first downloaded OBS to start my streaming and recording and all that kind of good stuff, again, while I'm technologically savvy, very technologically savvy, that doesn't automatically give me skills in streaming. It doesn't mean I automatically know how to use a specific tool of technology, right? It just means in general, I know technological concepts very well and how A, B, and C should work together. But that, like, streaming and hosting video and all. I knew nothing about. So I was having a trouble with an OBS on setting up my scenes properly. I just couldn't figure it out. I was like, I don't understand even what is a scene. Okay, I kind of got it. I had to go look up and now I know a lot of you guys are probably laughing your butts off at me because you're like, oh, that's kind of stupid. That's easy. Yeah, I get it. Some of y'all grew up in the streaming thing and I didn't. So I'm just going to use that as an excuse. That's just my excuse. But I went, looked up a quick, easy YouTube video. There's 1,000 of them out there. Got it set up, and I was good to go. But I'd been fighting that myself for so long, and then finally, and what the trigger was is a family member of mine had asked me, since he knew I was technologically savvy, hey, can you help me set up my streaming? Can you help me set up my OBS? And I was like, sure, I can show you what I know. And that really got me to figuring it out because I was like, man, I can't teach this guy if I don't know it. So let me go look it up. That's really what kicked it for me. And I was like, why have I been dealing with this problem this whole time when I could have just looked up the solution to this video on my own? So it very well could be the problem, right? And that's baffling. I'll give you another good example, right? I'm going to go back to the common sense part that I talked about before, right? So I'm a gamer, kinda. I play video games, but I'm not like one of those who's got to consume a new game every week or whatever, right? I've got a few games that I like and I kind of stick to, and then as new ones come out, depending on what they are, I'll play them. I'm big into RPGs, single player. I don't like MMOs at all. But obviously, I'm in a Facebook group that deals with video games, and it deals with modding video games. And there'll be a lot of times when somebody will come on and say, hey, does anybody know if this mod requires this? Like, well, go fucking read the mod page. All the requirements are listed on the mod page for you. Why are you asking on a forum? Go to the mod page where you got the mod. It'll tell you. Or, does this mod do X? Literally read the mod description. It will tell you what the mod does. Word for word. Literally, go read the mod description. A big one that they do is, does this mod require the script extender? So in this particular case, I'm talking about the Bethesda games, the Elder Scrolls games, and the Fallout games. And they'll be like, oh, does this require the mod, the script extender? Dude, go read the mod page. I don't know what to tell you. It'll tell you if it requires it. Go read the mod page. Well, how do I install a mod? Read the mod page. The mod pages tell you how to, not all cases, because some of them are like, if you're here, you should know how to install a mod, which is neither here nor there. But most of the mod pages have how to install a mod. They'll tell you installation instructions. Either use your mod manager or it goes here. And you'll just get all these kind of questions. And it's just baffling, man. It's just baffling that people don't know to go. I mean, it's common sense to me. If you download the page from somebody, why are you asking us? If you got a question, ask the mod author. Again, caveat that with, some of the older mods, the mod authors aren't around anymore. But still browse through the comments. You'll find answers to everything about that mod most of the time. Unless it's a compatibility issue with a newer mod, then, you're shit out of luck. But I'm talking basic common sense stuff here. Sorry, I'm dry. I'm thirsty today. So have you guys, let me ask you a question. Put in the chat anything that really just gripes you because you think it's a common sense thing, not a skill thing, right? Or just let me know if I'm just effing crazy and I'm just being overly critical, which could be a possibility because I tend to overthink stuff sometimes. Just a character flaw. It is what it is. But again, I don't know. And that particular thing, I want to be very clear too. That particular thing is not a generational thing, right? I see that from boomers all down to Gen Z. That's just a person thing, not a generation thing. And I, dude, and I'm gonna tell you something. I am so sick and tired of the generation thing. Oh, boomer this. Oh, Gen X that. Oh, Gen Z that. Oh, millennial that. I'm tired of all the hate on the generations. Right? They all had their different issues they had to work with and work through. And the more people want to point fingers at the younger generations, the more I go, who taught them that or who didn't teach them that? Quit saying they're this, right? Somebody's taught them that shit. Go figure it out. Quit bitching at them because they're doing something that you don't like, or you say you never taught them. Well, you might not have, but guess what? Somebody in your generation did, or somebody in a generation above you did. Uh, again, it's just baffling. Very baffling to me. The other thing that's, and I know the title was discussion about skills and common sense, but I'm going to digress a little bit. You know, the I don't know how to say it with because I know it's going to piss people off, but whatever. I get all the boomer comments anyway, so I expect more of them. But one of the things I don't really respect currently in culture is the hater culture. It's like it is cool to shit all over something just because of some imagined or heavily exaggerated whatever. Like movies and video games right now and TV shows are like the primary recipients of this. Music as well. I should say I should say entertainment is where this is like the most prevalent. For example, when well, I can't necessarily use that example. That's kind of a piss poor example. But for example, the Marvel movies, I'll make a safe generalization here, so to speak. Not that I give a shit about safe, but it's just easier to discuss. So a lot of people, let's use the Marvels for example, right? The Marvels that just came out, Brie Larson and crew. I don't know the name of the other two actresses. Uh, that movie got a shit ton of hate before it even came out. I'm not talking about the hate after. I'm talking about the hate before. Because they hated on Brie Larson and they didn't understand or didn't want to understand. Actually, I can't blame them for. I won't say they didn't. It wasn't made apparent on how these three individual characters were going to be brought together on screen. It seemed like gimmicky for just the Marvel name, right? Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, and whatever the other chick's name was. Uh, I don't remember, but she in the comics she was originally Captain Marvel as well, a Captain Marvel. So a lot of people hated on that and hated on that and it just got to be this cool thing just to hate on this movie, uh, without ever having seen it. And I can understand while a particular media, whether it's a book, movie, TV show, song, limerick, I don't care, might not be your cup of tea, but I don't understand the concept of you feel it is your right, and some people it's almost like they feel like it's their obligation to go shit all over something on a public forum, a public outlet, social media, simply because you don't understand or you don't agree how the story comes together, or you don't like a particular actor, right? And when I say shit all over it, I don't mean, oh, well, I don't like that character, so I'm probably not going to watch that movie. The character just doesn't intrigue me any. It's, oh, that character is shit. That actress is shit. The writing is shit. I'll never go see that because of some blah, blah, whatever they want to make up. And usually they'll, especially when it comes to a bunch of female-led movies, they'll always cry the social justice thing, or whatever, or the movie is too woke, or whatever their excuse is. Because I personally don't give a shit one way or the other. It's not that deep. It's a movie. But they'll shit all over it with negativity without specific reasons without valid specific reasons as to why whatever they're giving this criticism of is garbage, or whatever word they choose to use, right? So if I'm wanting to say I don't like a movie, right, before it even comes out, like Shang-Chi, let's use Shang-Chi for example. I'm not interested in the Shang-Chi character. It's just not a thing that I just liked. I didn't read it in comics. That storyline was just not something I was into. Wasn't familiar with it. I wasn't going to shit all over it though. I was just saying. I told my brother, I was like, I'm not going to see that at the theaters just because Shang-Chi is just not a character that I'm into. Probably not going to go see it. I didn't go see the later Thor movies because, while I don't have anything against Thor, I just thought the writing in those movies was very weak. In the first one, the whole love story between Thor and whatever her name is, Jane, was like, it happened in like minutes in the story, and it just felt very rushed. Hemsworth did a great job, but I thought the story was very rushed. Didn't have a lot of coherency for me. The second one after it came out, I saw it on streaming, and I actually liked it better than the first one, even though everybody else hated it. And then when they turned it over to comedy, Ragnarok and Love and Thunder, at that point, I was just kind of disenchanted with that whole character. Again, not the character. I don't know how to say it properly. It wasn't a story, right? But that whole line, that whole title, right? That whole title. I was kind of disenchanted with that whole title. Not a fan. Obviously, I loved Iron Man. Thought it was always good. Captain America, thought that was always good. Tried watching Echo. Didn't like it. Just because for me the pacing was very slow, at least in the beginning, and I couldn't bring myself to get into it. But my point is, I'm not going to go shit on those things. I'm just going to say I don't like it because of X. I just like it because the pacing's slow, yada yada yada. I'm not going to bitch because the lead character is a deaf woman who's also an amputee, and then say, oh, the woke culture, blah blah blah, you got to do this. I don't give a shit about that. Don't care. For me, it's about the movie. I don't get that deep into it. So I just don't understand the whole hater culture for that shit. Because it's not, I don't know. I guess you could kind of compare it to, and this is a weird comparison, I'll get to the point, but like the whole hate on Hogwarts Legacy because of J.K. Rowling. Now, I'm not going to delve into whether J.K. Rowling was transphobic or not. I've read some of the stuff she said, but honestly, I haven't delved that much into it to find out the specific things that people quote all the damn time, but never show where she said it. They just say that she said it. And given that Dumbledore was gay in the books, anyway, we're not going to go there. Shouldn't even said that much. But my point is, I'm all about the game. Was the game good? Was the game bad? No, but people review bombed that shit starting off because they don't like J.K. Rowling. And I'm like, I got that, right? You're going to review bomb this shit out of this game, make it in the hopes of making it do poorly. So the people who don't give two shits about your opinion will most likely not be able to continue to enjoy that franchise, because by you review bombing it, your intention was that it would do poorly and not make money. If it doesn't make money, they're not going to continue it. And I get why you did it. But why? Why? Does, I mean, I get that you expect everybody has to agree with you, but that's not a thing. So just say that you're not going to do anything and then move your happy ass along. The people who want to enjoy it can enjoy it, and that doesn't hurt you any because it's just a game. They're not going in endorsing what J.K. Rowling said or didn't say and saying, hey, yeah, she's great, love her. You know, that's not what's going on. They're playing a game. Now, the funny part about it was that actually backfired, as we know. That backfired. It sold like hotcakes, which was a good thing for me. You're allowed to have your opinion, and I get it. And obviously, I don't want anybody to be, discriminated against. That's absolutely something I don't want. Nobody to be discriminated against. However, the game itself didn't discriminate against anybody. And the game wasn't made by J.K. Rowling. Did she get royalties for her creation? Absolutely, and I get it. You wanted to hurt her pockets. But the review bombing portion of it for me was what got it. I mean, what the fuck? What did that have? Review bombing the game. I just don't understand. You could have just simply came out and started a boycott campaign that was more successful. Because of the review bombing, that actually made the boycott campaign less successful. Right, but it's all about the hater generation is what I'm getting at. Again, I'm not trying to get into the politics of the whole J.K. Rowling thing. I probably shouldn't have brought that game up because of the political contexts and subcontext there. I'll try to see if I can think of a better one. It's just, a few years ago, just every movie that came out was just getting all the hate. Oh, it's a piece of shit. Well, before the movie ever even came out, right? Now, here's a prime example. They're actually making a Fallout TV show based on the Fallout series of games by Bethesda, right? And I'm in a bunch of Fallout groups. And that, as soon as it was announced with a trailer, not as soon as it was announced, but as soon as the trailer came out, everybody and their mothers seemed to want to hate on that because it didn't fit their exact, without ever having seen the show, what little snippets they saw didn't meet their exact desires for how that show should be in their mind. It didn't meet their expectations. And it's like, I get it, but it's an adaptation or it's outside of the lore. It's not, we're not doing each game. Why are you hating on something that you haven't seen yet? Right? Now, as a personal example, right? I cannot stand the Lord of the Rings or the Hobbit movies. I absolutely cannot stand them. I cannot stand them because of the strong deviations from the story. I can stomach the Lord of the Rings more than I can the Hobbit because the Hobbit was a piece of trash. But I didn't hate it other than the fact that it so strongly deviated from the story. That's the only reason. I don't give a shit about adding female characters. I don't give a shit about adding Legolas as far as, or in as much as, those particular points, right? I don't care. I don't care about the romance. They could have put romance in it without deviating so strongly from the story. Now, that being said, I don't go around and shit on either one of those two properties. I don't make posts slamming them. I don't get on a fan page for them and just start bashing them. Whenever it's talked about, I don't make a million posts saying, oh, that's garbage, that's this, that's that. I just say, I don't like it. I think it sucks. That's all I say. I think it sucks. I don't try to say that, oh, objectively, and this is a key word that you could tell that people use all the time who just, they're trying to make their opinion a fact when it's not. And they'll say, well, objectively, it's just a really bad movie. Objectively, no, there's no such thing. It is subjective. Did it make money? Yes or no? That doesn't always indicate whether a property is good or bad. Right? It just really doesn't. Doesn't indicate whether a property is good or bad. There have been a lot of properties who didn't do well at the theaters who ended up making a crap ton or spawned various things. And I'll give you an example for that was the original Highlander. The original Highlander didn't do great at the theaters. It was like an indie film, right? But it spawned a crap ton of sequel movies. It spawned a series, and now they're getting ready to reboot that movie again. Probably not going to like it. I'm not going to hate on it. I'm just saying I'm probably not going to like it. Simply because I think that was a magical kind of thing that happened. You had specific characters playing specific, but like the Kurgan, I don't think you're going to be able to get somebody to play the Kurgan like Brown did. You're just not going to. I mean, the Kurgan was such an iconic character. And I don't think you're going to get anybody to play the Highlander the way he did. Not saying they're not going to be good actors. It's not what I'm saying. But I don't think they're going to be that good. But that being said, I'll give it a chance. I'm not going to go on a fan page for that and shit all over it just because I think I'm cool. You know, somebody made a comment on a TikTok video I saw yesterday about this kind of concept. It was a little peripheral to this, but kind of talking about this concept. And it was like, it's because of the bandwagon effect. People want to get on the bandwagon. And when somebody else tells them that something sucks, oh yeah, because they don't want to deal with people coming down on them for their differing opinions. So they get on the bandwagon of the people, and it just causes this railroad, right? If I want everybody to agree with me, or I want to be popular, I've got to agree with you. And then that means I'm going to go shit on somebody else's good time. And that's not a thing for me. I'm not trying to shit on somebody else's good time. I may not understand it. It may not be a good time for me. I may not like it. But unless you're doing something objectively morally wrong or legally wrong, I don't care. I really don't. You do you, bro. You do you. Give you a prime example about that. I hate gambling. Hate it. Not because I think it's bad or any of that other bullshit. I think it's a waste. I think it's an extreme waste. If I have money to gamble and potentially lose, I've got money to spend on something else, bills, or something that's tangible, or something that will improve my life in some way. And gambling does not do that for me, right? But at the same time, when somebody tells me they went to the boat and gambled, the casino boat, or the track, or they go to Las Vegas, I don't shit all over them because they did something that I think is essentially worthless. I say, okay, cool. Can't talk to you about it. I'm glad you had a good time, but I can't talk to you about it because I don't know jack shit about gambling. Other than for me, I consider it to be a huge waste of money. So that's one of the things that I can use as a prime example of, I really don't like something, but I'm not going to shit all over it in general. I don't go on any web pages of any gambling businesses nearby and shit all over them and tell them how evil they are, or any of that kind of good stuff. There's no sense in it, right? We all have the things that we enjoy, right? And just because I find it a distasteful hobby or entertainment doesn't mean that I'm going to devalue your enjoyment in it, which seems to be a thing nowadays with everybody getting on the hater train. Another good example of that would be, oh, and I know I'm going to get some hate for this one, is the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce thing where they would show her on the football things, and it's like, who gives a shit? They show her for 30 seconds total. Who cares? 30 seconds out of your life going to kill you to see Taylor Swift on a football program? No, it's not going to kill you, right? And showing Taylor Swift there was bringing in other people to enjoy football, people who wouldn't normally look at football for half a second. Oh, well, Taylor Swift's there. Let me see what she's doing, right? Some of her fans would watch. That's good for ratings. Absolutely. I get that, right? And whatever's good for ratings, right? While it makes them money, it also helps us make sure that we get a good quality product next time around. There wasn't any wokeness in it or whatever baffling bullshit people were coming up with to hate Taylor Swift showing up in a football game. I don't know, but I don't know. Maybe again, I don't like to hate on things. Um, I just don't. It's I, I just don't get it. Uh, I feel like sometimes, and this isn't don't mistake me. This isn't old people, but sometimes I feel like when those people come along, it's like who was it? It was Homer's dad who was shaking his cane at the cloud. Go away, you're raining. I'm out. Whatever he said. But I'm not shaking my cane or shaking my fist at a cloud, right? Uh, the cloud doesn't give a shit if I'm shaking my fist, right? It just doesn't. And all the people out there who want to put their hate opinions on something, it's like, unless it's your circle of friends, nobody gives two shits about your hate circle, right? Nobody gives a shit about your hate opinion. I personally don't. I tend to find those things extremely hilarious and I laugh my ass off because people are getting so bent out of shape and frustrated and spending all this negative energy over nothing that affects their life. Nothing that affects their life. Uh, and it's baffling. Another thing, it's uh, killing me in this generation, and it's not really this generation. It's this culture, right? Well, I guess you could say it's like maybe the young millennials, maybe early Gen Z. Not sure the time frame, but this whole us versus them and like the women and men culture right now, the dating culture or the relationship culture. It's us versus them, us versus them, us versus them. Well, men, they don't do anything. They're useless. They should be making high six figures to be of any worth to me before I'll date them. They should pay for everything. Don't expect me to pay for anything. Yada yada yada. Um, or men, or on the other hand, the feminist men can't do anything right. I can do without a man. I can do anything a man can do. Whatever. And for the men, it's like, what are you talking about? You're being an idiot. Men do all these things. Men sacrifice. You all don't understand. You all expect too much without being willing to give anything in return. You all want to be put up on a pedestal who could do no wrong, blah, blah, blah. It's a whole back and forth bullshit. That's baffling to me. I, I'm just saying I just don't get it. I don't know how to discuss that in a way that's without getting into a million details, but that's just baffling to me. How do we not understand that we have to come together about things and we have to act as one, right? Um, to be able to have relationships in our culture, right? If you've got a man saying women expect too much, women are nothing but hoes and cheaters, uh, women are just gold diggers, whatever, and then the women are saying man's got to pay for everything. I shouldn't have to pay for nothing. He should do all the chores around the house. Blah 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 blah. Whatever. That's not conducive. That's not conducive to a relationship in any way. Now, of course, generalizations. Obviously, one of the things that I've noticed that a lot of this stuff comes from generalizations, but a lot of that stuff tends to come from the bigger cities, right? The denser populations. Like a lot of the rural areas don't don't have that. They don't have those kind of opinions one way or the other. Um, Reasons, but I don't know. I wish I wish that kind of stuff would go away. I'm not big on the hater. It's just I see a lot of that stuff come across my uh, TikTok feed all the time, and I personally take people for how they are rather than this perceived. Well, they should do this and they should do that. I guess in a way it's kind of hard for me to understand, what the accomplishment there is and what we're trying to get across. Um, so anyway, all right, guys, look, I've got to go to dinner with my mother, so I'm gonna wrap this up. I hope y'all enjoyed listening to me rant about various things. And if you didn't, you can tell me you didn't. You can tell me I suck. That's fine. It'll be all right. Hopefully, on the next episode, we will have my son in here. We're going to talk about a couple of things, kind of related to what we talked about tonight. But hopefully, he'll be in on the next stream. He was supposed to be in on the first stream, but he had some stuff happen. It's not like life doesn't happen, right? But anyway, I will see you guys next time. Thanks for hanging out.